The drama surrounding this fight didn't begin when the first punch was thrown. It started the moment these two fighters stepped into the spotlight, carrying not just their records, but their reputations, their doubts, and everything they had fought for up to that point. On one side stood Sebastian Fundora, a fighter who looked like he had been carved out of a completely different mold. Towering, awkward, and relentless, he brought with him a style that most opponents simply couldn't prepare for. His reach, his volume, his willingness to fight on the inside despite every physical advantage telling him otherwise, it made him unpredictable and, more importantly, dangerous. Across from him stood Erickson Lubin, sharp, explosive, and determined to prove that he belonged at the very top. This wasn't just another fight. This was a collision of two paths that had been building towards something bigger. As the introductions echoed through the arena, the tension was already thick. Lubin, undefeated and confident, carried himself like a man who knew this was his moment. Fundora, calm but intense, looked ready to drag the fight into chaos, the kind of chaos where he thrived. When the referee gave his final instructions and stepped aside, there was a brief moment of stillness. Then the bell rang, and everything changed. From the opening seconds, the contrast was clear. Fundora's height loomed over the ring, but Lubin wasn't intimidated. He stepped in, closing the distance, testing the waters with sharp punches. And then it happened. A right hand from Lubin that snapped Fundora's head back just enough to make everyone take notice. It wasn't a knockdown, but it was a statement. Lubin wasn't here to survive. He was here to win. Fundora responded the only way he knew how, by increasing the pace. He began to let his hands go, mixing body shots with uppercuts, trying to impose his rhythm. The exchanges grew heavier, more intense. Lubin stayed inside, targeting the body, looking to take away Fundora's advantages piece by piece. It was a chess match played at full speed, each man testing the limits of the other. Then the fight shifted. In the second round, the momentum swung violently. Fundora, finding his range, unleashed a brutal combination capped off by a devastating uppercut. Lubin's legs betrayed him, and suddenly, he was down. The crowd erupted as Fundora stood over him, sensing the moment. It looked like the tide had turned completely. Lubin, who had started so strong, now found himself staring up at the lights, forced to dig deep earlier than expected. But this is where fights like this are defined, not by who lands first, but by who refuses to stay. Down, Lubin got up, not just physically, but mentally. He steadied himself, survived the round, and when the next one began, he came forward again. There was no hesitation, no sign of doubt. Instead, there was fire. He began to counter Fundora's aggression, slipping shots and firing back with precision. The crowd could feel it. This wasn't over, not even close. What followed was something special. Round after round, the two fighters traded momentum like it was currency. Fundora's volume was relentless, his uppercuts slicing through the guard, his punches coming in waves that seemed impossible to keep up with. But Lubin refused to be overwhelmed. He fought back with sharp combinations, targeting the body, digging, in with hooks that slowed Fundora down just enough to keep himself in the fight. There were moments where it looked like Fundora was taking control completely. His uppercuts became a recurring nightmare for Lubin, snapping his head back, forcing him onto the defensive. But just when it seemed like Lubin might crumble, he would fire back, clean, powerful shots that reminded everyone why he was in this fight to begin with. The pace was unbelievable. Neither man gave an inch. Every round felt like it could be the last, not because the fight was ending, but because of how much they were giving. This wasn't just skill. It was willpower, endurance, and heart colliding in real time. By the middle rounds, the damage began to show. Faces swollen, blood mixing with sweat, both fighters looked like they had been through a war, and yet they kept going. Fundora continued to press forward, throwing nearly double the punches, trying to drown Lubin in volume. But Lubin adapted, working the body more, trying to break down the bigger man from the inside. And then came the moment that changed everything. Late in the fight, just when it seemed like Fundora's pressure might finally overwhelm him, Lubin found something. A perfectly timed combination, sharp, precise, and devastating. The punches landed clean, and suddenly it was Fundora who was in trouble. His legs wobbled, his balance betrayed him, and for the first time, he looked vulnerable. The crowd exploded. Lubin pressed forward, unleashing everything he had. Punch after punch, he chased the finish, sensing that this was his chance to turn the fight completely around. And then it happened. Fundora went down. In an instant, the narrative flipped. The man who had been pressing forward all night was now fighting to survive. Lubin stood over him, adrenaline surging, knowing that he had just created one of the biggest moments of the fight. But just like earlier, the story didn't end there. Fundora got up. Bruised, shaken, but unbroken, he rose to his feet and pushed forward again. The resilience on display was almost unbelievable. Both fighters had now tasted the canvas, both had faced adversity, and neither was willing to back down. The final rounds became something more than just a fight. They became a test of everything these men were made of. They met in the center of the ring again and again, trading punches with a level of intensity that seemed unsustainable. Every shot carried weight. Every exchange felt like it could be decisive. The crowd wasn't just watching anymore. They were witnessing something rare, something unforgettable. Fundora, despite the knockdown, continued to push forward, his uppercuts still finding their mark, his volume still relentless. Lubin, battered but determined, kept firing back, refusing to let the moment slip away. It was a 50-50 fight in the purest sense. No clear control, no easy answers, just two fighters giving everything. By the later rounds, the physical toll was undeniable. Lubin's face showed severe swelling, the damage accumulating with every exchange. Fundora, bloodied but relentless, continued to apply pressure, forcing the fight into close quarters where he thrived. It became less about technique and more about survival. And then, in a moment that shocked many, the fight was stopped. Lubin's corner, seeing the damage, made the decision to protect their fighter. It wasn't a surrender, it was a recognition of the war that had taken place and the cost it was beginning to demand. The referee waved it off, and just like that, it was over. The arena erupted, not in confusion, but in appreciation. Because what they had just witnessed wasn't just a fight, it was a battle defined by heart, resilience, and moments that will be replayed for years to come. Both men had been knocked down, both had pushed each other to the brink. And in the end, it wasn't just about who won, it was about what they gave. Fundora stood victorious, but not untouched. Lubin, though defeated, walked away having proven something just as important, that he belonged in fights like this, that he could go toe-to-toe with anyone, and that he would never back down. This was boxing at its rawest. No shortcuts, no easy rounds, just two fighters stepping into the unknown and refusing to quit. And now the question shifts to you. Was this one of the greatest back-and-forth fights you've seen? Did the right corner make the call to stop it? Or should it have continued? And most importantly, who would you want to see these warriors face next? If you felt the intensity of this battle, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Because fights like this don't just entertain, they stay with you.